Welcome to Big Blend Radio's Wine Time with Peggy show, featuring Peggy Fiandaca, who along with her winemaker husband Kurt Lawrence Dunham, owns and operates LDV Winery in Arizona. Welcome, everybody. You know we love our first Wednesday Wine Time with Peggy show. Peggy and her husband, Kurt, own LDV Winery out in Southeast Arizona. The winery itself is out in the Chiricahua foothills, so it's kind of southeast of Tucson, so not far. And then in Scottsdale, they have a tasting room. Now, we've been to the vineyard, and of course, we went wine tasting, and we tasted their baby Viogniers that are now out for the public. But you know, we have to get to Arizona to go and taste them, and we have not been to the tasting room yet, but that might change soon. But anyway, go to ldvwinery.com, and all the links I give on the show notes today will be in the show notes, I should say. But welcome, Peggy. How are you?
I'm doing well. Of course, I'm trying to stay cool with multiple 115 plus days in the Phoenix area,
Wow.
which are, anything above 110 is unbearable. So staying out of the heat and inside with a lot of air conditioning on. So not too bad.
Right on. Well, you inspired the show because you wanted to showcase regions across America, and that's what we're doing. I mean, as this airs on July 3rd, we're getting ready for 4th of July. So I think we need to take a look at the almighty grape and how it's fermented and fabulous. So that's a good thing. Peggy, how is everything in the vineyard right now because it's a little cooler where the vineyard is, right, than Phoenix?
Right. So we are, as you said, southeastern Arizona. We're at 5,000 foot elevation. So we're high altitude vineyard. So when you see the picture behind me of the Chiricahua Mountains, those are 10,000 feet. And so we get a lot of cool winds and rain off from that mountain. Of course, the monsoon season has just started. So we had our first monsoon rain. It didn't, because I'm a little bit higher on the mountain, I didn't get hit with a torrential rain like my fellow vineyards that are about 1,000 feet lower than I am, where the majority of grapes are grown. They got hit pretty hard, but no hail. Of course, we got to worry about hail at this time. And but no, it's under 100 degrees up where we are, but it is warmer than usual, even at the vineyard right now. So a lot of water going into the vines.
Well, we can't wait for driving across country in the heat in the next week or so. It's going to be fun.
Good. Awesome. You're coming west, huh?
Yes, we're coming west. So it'll be fun. It'll be hot and sweaty to dry hot and sweaty, right? So it'll be fun. But I'm glad the vineyard's doing good, right? It's
Oh yeah. We are we got wonderful crops set on all of our grapes. We had a bit of shatter and because we have very high winds that come off that mountain. And so that's what we worry about in the springtime when when it was budding. So our Grenache got a bit of shatter, but they look great. I mean, the clusters are huge. They are all we planted 1,100 vines this year, and the babies have come out really beautifully. So knock on wood, everything looks really well towards a great harvest this year if everything goes well between now and August.
What does the Arizona profile look like for wineries? How many wineries do you think you have in Southeast? And then it pretty much goes up north, right, towards like Camp Verde and that area.
Right. Well, what I was excited about showcasing wine regions across the country, where there are so many up and coming wine regions and smaller vineyards like ours that are really doing fabulous things, and they don't always get the headlines. And I really want to showcase that, hey, we're out here. People are shocked that Arizona has a really fast growing wine industry. We have 3 different wine regions, one in southeastern Arizona where I am, near the Mexico-New Mexico border. South of Tucson is our oldest wine region. And then north of the Phoenix area, about an hour and a half to 2 hours, is the Verde Valley wine region. So when I started our winery about 18 years ago, we were license number 17 in the state of Arizona, and we're at 110 licenses today. So it's
That's
a
awesome.
very fast growing region. There's a lot of challenges facing the growth of the industry, like production caps and water
Mm.
in parts of the state. And but it is still a growing region, and we're starting to produce really high quality wines. It's not just touristy wine, which was the original
Mhm.
vineyards that we're producing. Now we have really quality winemakers like ourselves that are wanting to produce the highest quality grapes and wine from those grapes. So I think you're going to hear a lot more about Arizona as a wine region in the future, like some of these other growing wine areas.
Yeah, we can totally attest to Peggy and Kurt's wine. LDV, I'm serious. I'm serious. And it's brutal because we will fight over it. And we've also had the honor of tasting Bell's Up Winery. We've got Dave and his wife run and own the winery, and Dave is the winemaker. He went from the world of accounting to splish splash. I'm playing with grapes and splashing around in wine, right, Dave? Is it more fun?
Oh,
Welcome back.
it's a bit of a culture change, but that's okay. I always tell people that my relationship with alcohol is much healthier now tthan it was back in those days.
Yeah, that's a good
Um,
one. Yeah.
but we absolutely love it. We have a very small 10-acre piece of property here in the Willamette Valley. I was laughing here listening to Peggy talk because we're almost the complete opposite situation. Today is about 75 and sunny, and we have had plenty of rain over the winter, so no need to irrigate. And I kind of felt bad for our good fortune up here.
Well, I don't, you know what, I remember I talked with you, Carol, as well. We were up in Oregon in the ice storms and all of that. And I'm going, and I was telling Peggy about this on a show. And then we're driving past through the Dells and going to the northeast corner, and I'm seeing vineyards. I'm like, oh no, they're going to have to turn to ice wine. And that's not the profile for Oregon. you know so I mean, how your vineyards make it through all of that, right, in Oregon with that kind of cold weather? It doesn't seem to get as affected, right, because everything's dormant.
Yeah, the for us, when we get our bad weather, as you said, all the vines at that point are dormant. And even though it doesn't get terribly cold here. Even through ice storms, snowstorms, we really nothing is going to affect the vines until we start to get about the time of bud break. We did have one situation a couple of years ago, back in 2022, where buds had broken. It was roughly the middle of April. Buds had broken in the vineyard, and then we had the latest freeze that Oregon has had in 50 years. This is sort of one of the benefits of planting on a hill, because at least for us, the cold air sloped down the hill, didn't pool anywhere, didn't stick around very long. So the only place in our vineyard that we had damage was at the very bottom of our property. It flattens out a little bit. But for folks that had vineyards that are down much closer to the valley floor, or folks that planted in on flatter or swale areas, those are people that saw probably 85% of their primary buds that got pretty much zapped in that.
Oh.
So fortunately, it looked like, from what we can tell, the industry as a whole recovered from that. But it is the kind of thing that makes you a little worried once you start to get the bud break. But for us, it's like I said, for anything that happens in January, February, and March really isn't going to concern us very much.
uh, how many wineries are in Willamette Valley in Oregon? Because I remember going through there doing a bit of wine tasting, and we drove, I think, from McMinnville to the coast and went down. It was a beautiful day, but we had to slow down because you can't drink too much. You have to be careful. But it seemed to be like quite a big area.
The Willamette Valley is pretty large. It's roughly 100 miles north to south. It starts up in the Portland area, which is just a few miles or so from the Columbia River, and it runs all the way down to Eugene in the south. And then from east to
Oh,
west, depending on where you are, it can be, about 50 miles east to west. So it's a long, wide area. But the numbers in the Willamette Valley have increased tremendously in the last couple of years. We are now up to 800 wineries in the Willamette Valley. So
Wow.
despite being a big area, when you're driving through, now I'll say this, when you drive through the area, it doesn't feel like everybody's just sitting on top of each other, right? I mean, we do have enough distance between them, but I think one of the things that makes it a challenge when folks come here is to try to figure out, 800 places, where are the places that are best for them individually to go? And so one of the things when folks call us, we always sort of encourage them to talk about, what sort of experiences that they're looking for. And then, we can usually almost always help to guide them to the best places where they will want to be.
Okay. And you have people make appointments with you where you can actually sit with them and do a tasting, right? Which is pretty cool.
Exactly. And that's the only way we've ever done things, because we are a very small winery. I mean, we're not the smallest, but we're pretty close. I make roughly 600 cases total per year amongst everything that I do. And we really, when people come in, the biggest thing is we really want them to get to know us, get to know the wines, and ask anything. I tell folks all the time, there are no state secrets or magic to what we do. It's just a lot of hard work. And I want to be able to get folks the right wines for them. And the best way to do that is to get to know them, sit with them, and just talk, I mean, just kind of take wine back to what it was always supposed to be in the first place, which is something that brings people together, drives great conversation and great memories. And we just find that in a much more intimate environment, the way we can do, it's just much easier for all that to happen versus, let's say, a larger tasting room, and where you may have people that don't know much about the wines that are kind of trying to run the show.
Okay. And now let's go over to Carol. Carol Skeeter Stevens. She is in Medford, Oregon, which is the Rogue Valley, Southern Oregon. So they get a little bit of heat, but they've got Crater Lake in their backyard, so you can go swimming if you want. It's a beautiful region, just like Willamette, just like Peggy over in Arizona. But welcome back, Carol. How are
Hi.
you?
Good. How are you doing?
Doing good. And so everyone should know Carol represents Travel Medford, and you can go to travelmedford.org. And I want to give the website out over for Dave for Bells Up Winery. Just go to bellsupwinery.com. Again, all the links are in the show notes. So, Carol, can you give everyone kind of a profile of how big your region is and how many wineries? And you're right at the edge. When people are going up 5 from California, it's like you may be going to Napa, but just keep your foot on the gas. No, I'm just kidding. Napa's good. I'm not knocking them.
We don't have any sales tax, so there's that, right? So we can always
Oh,
say that.
good girl.
Oh, so Rogue Valley is southern. I mean, it's as southern as you can get. Our wineries outside of the Ashland area literally are on the last exit in Oregon. You keep going and you head up the hill and you're in California, and then we go all the way north, just to south of Grants Pass. Then above that, you hit Illinois Valley, the Umpqua Valley. But the Rogue Valley here consists of the Applegate Valley, the Upper Rogue, and kind of the Bear Creek, Jacksonville area. We have a whopping 85. We just dropped a 0 from the Willamette Valley wineries down here. But has been an interesting journey. I first started getting involved with Rogue Valley in the early 2000s. We had a winery out in Sam's Valley, and we're up in the Willamette Valley working our way in the world of Pinot at Domaine Serene. And my partner's family decided to plant grapes. And they planted them because originally they planted baby kiwis. And baby kiwis have a lot of frost issues. They bud early and they don't ripen till late. So they can get the early and the late frost. So we found that out really easy. But the great thing about baby kiwis is they have the same trellising as grapes. So we were able to put some grapes in down here. And, the Rogue Valley, I will say it's mighty, but it's really still is in its infancy. It reminds me a little bit of Walla Walla in the 90s, that, there's people that have been here doing it for a while. We have over 70 varieties planted here, which is, a positive and kind of a curse at the same time, right? Willamette Valley can talk about Pinot, they can talk about Chardonnay, Napa can talk about Cab, we can talk about anything from Albarino to Zinfandel, literally A to Z and everything in between. So, you know, it's a challenge. We are a warmer climate. It's about 97 degrees out today. And, but we get cool evenings. We get a kind of a later spring and then kind of an early fall. So we'll harvest a little bit later than the Willamette Valley, but in the last probably 10 years, we're approaching not so far away anymore, just because of the varietals, the warm climate varietals we have planted down here.
And you have Harry and David in your backyard too. So
Oh.
if you want wine and cheese and fruit, you can.
Yeah.
And that's the other thing. I mean, your wine region really goes with the agricultural bounty too, right?
It does. We're home to Rogue Creamery, which has the world's best blue cheese, and we have Harry and David and pears and wine, and we have a ton of artists. And I mean, it is an agricultural mecca down here, which is great. And water is an issue down here, unlike up in the Willamette Valley. We've been really blessed the last couple of years. A lot of the wineries are on the irrigation district. And depending upon how long that water stays on, we're able to continue to water. We have to be really aware of wildfire threat. And so the wineries spend a lot of time, prepping and making sure that, they do their part for wildfire prevention. But some of those things, as any glorified farmer, growing grapes is farming, right? And people forget that, right? It's like, we're glorified farmers, and people are like, oh no, but you're in the wine industry. It's like, no, we're farmers, right? And it's like all these things, but we just farm a really expensive cash crop. And so we have to, we get one chance a year. Everybody said, well, how's the vintage this year? And I always say it's the best one this year. So that's all we can say. But it is, it is, we're glorified farmers. And so Mother Nature, is either on our side or she isn't. And she challenges us every year for sure.
I think, Dave, you guys are going to have to start throwing buckets of water south, and then, go, a little bit east over to Arizona. Everybody wants a little bit of water.
If it were only that easy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We did a lot of wine tasting in Grand Junction and the Palisade area. They have a Palisade Fruit and Wine Byway in Colorado. It was very fascinating because you're in the Colorado River Plateau, and it changed because the way the river was going. Obviously, the Colorado River is not anything as what it used to be. What used to be the mighty river, mighty Colorado, is kind of a trickle now, and they've been doing a lot of work on it. But what's interesting is these vineyards are growing, and because they have mountains around them, they have Grand Mesa. Every time you go to a winery, everything's built along the way the river curves, and there's a lot of curves there, and they have alpaca farms and all kinds of stuff going on, peaches, you name it, and the wine there is exceptional. So I just want to give a shout out to that area because they're also dealing with water issues. But I mean, you could go around a corner to the next winery and the profile is completely different because of these incredible microclimates that they have from the Colorado River. I love that. So anyway, shout out to Colorado, but we're going to go east over. We're going to go to Michaelin. Michaelin and her husband own and run the Bird and Butterfly Inn in Jasper, Texas. Then we're going to go up to the Blue Ridge Parkway. So we've got some good areas here. So let's go over to Michaelin Westman, and her husband own again the Bird and Butterfly Inn in Jasper. So welcome, Michaelin. How are you?
Hello. We're great. How are you?
Doing good. So you run a bed and breakfast, and you were on our show about a year ago, I think it was, talking about
right around just before Veterans Day.
Yeah, we were talking about baking for soldiers and
yes,
the Soldiers
the
Angels
in
program.
support of our troops.
Yeah, very awesome program, and we just did another one, and glad you're on the show. And so how's life with the bed and breakfast? Because I know you were kind of getting new at the beginning there, right? You were kind of at the beginning of the journey.
We started our second year in October, and it's been interesting. We had someone locally where we are. We're not in the town of Jasper proper. We're probably 15 or 20 minutes north up by Lake Sam Rayburn. And there's a lot of money here that you would not know necessarily because there are a lot of second homes here. But there is a good concentration of wealth, and someone suggested to us that we start doing wine dinners because there's nothing like that around here that you can do. So we tested it with a guy, and he was a nightmare. But there's a great saying that if you can't be a good example, you'll have to be a terrible warning. And he was that. And there were some great takeaways from that. And we know a couple of sommeliers, and so we were reaching out to them and we're not having very good luck. And in probably February or March last year, we found this gentleman whose name is Guy Stout. We're just about 2 hours northeast of Houston, and we still maintain our home in Houston, so we go back and forth with some regularity. And we found this fellow named Guy Stout, and he is a master sommelier, which we didn't know that was a thing. We're much more educated now. So, and he's out of Houston. So we emailed him and said, look, we know you're, way too big of a deal for us, but we know you know a lot of people, and we're trying to get these wine dinners going. And, we would be happy if you would make some introductions for us. He also owns a vineyard in Napa and produces Stout family wines. And we said, if they want to have a Stout family wine dinner, all the better. He wrote us about 2 days later. We sent a picture of our property. We do have a very lovely property. And he said, what a gorgeous place. We would love to come host a Stout family wine dinner there. And my husband and I were both like, oh my gosh, like this major guy. I mean, he is completely famous in Texas. They came and did the dinner, and it was amazing, and everybody lost their minds because it was so good. And he was just, for somebody who could afford a really big ego, he's the most down-to-earth person.
No, wait a minute. How big is his belt buckle?
I'll talk to you later.
Oh
no, he was with a liquor distributor, so he's a master sommelier. He was either the first or second master in Texas. He's a certified wine educator. He sits on the court of master sommelier. He's also a certified spirits something else. I mean, this guy is major credentials, and he's in my kitchen chopping tomatoes to be helpful. I mean, he's just, for somebody that could afford a big ego, he's just has no pretense whatsoever. Just super nice, super down to earth. Helped us with some other introductions. A few months later, we had another master come out and we did another dinner. And then there's a local vineyard by us in Hemp Hill that's about probably 35 minutes northeast of us. And so they came out and they hosted a dinner for their wine. And we thought, well, golly, Texas has 8 AVAs. There are 500 wineries in Texas. Now, most people know about Fredericksburg and the Hill Country. So Chuck and I did a trip to Fredericksburg, and we started reaching out to folks, and we got scheduled all through the end of this year. And we actually are even scheduled into January of 2025. The wine dinners are just a big hit.
Well, Texas, the wine, I know we've connected with Messina Hoff Winery. They were one of the first wineries out there. She's been on our show 2 or 3 times. And then Los Pinos. We had fun with Los Pinos, but that was up north of Gladewater. So we were so a lot of their grapes are coming from the Hill Country, but then they had some up there, which I think is amazing. They do a really good Tempranillo. And they were kind enough to let Nancy take one of the last bottles. Peggy, that's a big deal. Like if you only have so many left. And they're like, I don't know what Nancy did, but somehow she gets Tempranillo from everybody. I don't know what she does, but we left with that Tempranillo, and she said it's hers. That's it. But I got a Syrah, so I was quite happy, But Texas really has quite, I think, because you're such an amazing, huge state and so many climates, right? The wine is just so variable.
It's all over the place. The area that we are is known for muscadine grapes, which is a very sweet grape. It's more like a dessert wine. And so, we talk about using that as a wine, but when you have people coming up from Houston who have more sophisticated palates and they can get any, what we call a fritzy titsy wine, they can get real wines. They don't want to come up here and drink muscadine. I mean, they'll go for lunch or something and try it, but they're looking for a real wine experience. And so having a master sommelier or even a certified or level 2 or level 3 sommelier come out and put together a pairing with food and some interesting wines, or having the winemaker come out and present their own wines, it's just such a unique experience.
That's fantastic.
Well, Mikeland, if you ever want to invite us out, we have a lot of wine club members.
Come on. Come
in
on.
Houston and
Come
around
on.
Houston, well, all over Texas. So I think we could fill up a nice evening of
We do a
LDV
very,
wine.
we do a very small gathering. We only sell 20 tickets. We don't do it in our dining room. We do it in our living room when we move out all the furniture because that's just the most practical way to serve 20 people. But it's an intimate night. The guests like it because they get, real one-on-one with the winemaker or with the sommelier. And so it's a very intimate and personal night that's a lot of fun and everybody really enjoys it. So yes, we would love to have you come out.
Oh
You'd be
my
our
gosh,
You'd be
party.
our furthest trip.
Oh
Yeah.
my gosh. And then Joe's got to go. And we got to go. Joe, I got to bring Joe Clark on because we've kind of done a circle. I was trying to do across America, but Peggy's in the middle there because she's in Arizona. It's her show. So we start with Peggy. So we did. We went from Oregon back across Arizona to Texas. And now we're going to go up to the Blue Ridge Parkway. Really? Isn't that the Blue Ridge Mountains? That's the area. And everyone, Joe Clark has the best website name, haveglassworldtravel.com. And we agree. And also recipiestravelculture.com. And she's got some great articles covering North Carolina and Virginia up on our website, the Yadkin Valley in North Carolina. She's covered that, and she has more coming up on Virginia. So welcome back, Joe. How are you?
Thank you. I'm good. How about you?
We're doing good. Are you getting thirsty yet?
Well, no, because, while they've been talking, I've been sipping.
Oh, look at that.
Came prepared.
So you're in South Carolina. Is there, I know what last time you were on the show talking about Myrtle Beach, and I said, well, how's the wine? Kind of prepping towards the show, and you said
she already told you how it is. It's muscadine.
muscadine.
That's all we can muscadine. That's all we can grow at the coast. So it's that sweet, heavy grape syrup. So if that's why I'm talking about the Blue Ridge Parkway and Yadkin Valley.
So tell us a little bit about that area so people understand the Blue Ridge Mountains and that whole, it's amazing.
All right. The Blue Ridge Parkway is part of the Appalachian Mountain chain, which ranges technically from Pennsylvania and West Virginia down to Georgia. And the section that I am looking at is along the Blue Ridge Parkway, which is about 469 miles in Virginia and North Carolina. And I think there are 10 wineries along the parkway proper. We have 300 wineries in Virginia, 250 wineries in North Carolina. So we don't have one section that's got 300 like California or somewhere, but if it wasn't for us, they wouldn't have grapes.
There you go.
We were growing grapes, and we had the vines when France that had the blight and lost almost all their vines. They got some of the rootstock back from Virginia and North Carolina to start over.
And a little from Texas.
And from Arizona. Yeah.
Huh. Interesting.
Yeah.
But
It's a very sturdy American rootstock is very sturdy, and it is protected from a lot of the problems that France was experiencing at the time.
Absolutely. The Norton.
Are we going to get into French fries just now? Uh-oh. I'll behave.
But the elevation is on the parkway. The elevation is 3,000 feet above sea level. And the two wineries there that I love are Chateau Morset and Villa Appalachia. One is French inspired, one is Italian inspired, and they're across the parkway from each other. So you could literally walk from one to the other. Those are 40, well, let's see, this is 46 years now for Chateau Morset, I think, and 35 for Villa Appalachia, but it has changed hands. Now, Chateau Morset started out in the garage, a couple that had bought a country home, mountain home to kind of get away from the day-to-day drudge of earning a living. And then they were so bored, they started making wine in the garage, and it got out of hand.
Now that sounds familiar.
Yeah, it didn't take long for their son to get hooked, and off he went to college to learn to be a winemaker. So it's it's been a true cycle for them. When they built the new winery and the chateau, if you will, one of the head plumber, the man designing and doing the plumbing, David Morissette, was complaining that they didn't have enough grapes and they didn't have people growing grapes, and they needed people further down the mountain growing grapes that they couldn't grow at 3,000 feet. And he said, I got some land. What kind of grapes do I need to grow? Next thing you know, he was growing grapes. And a couple of years later, his son and his wife came back home to roost, and they established Stanburn Winery down in Patrick Springs. So they started out growing grapes for one winery and ended up creating their own winery, which sadly, this will be their last year. They've had some tragedy in their family, and they just want to regroup, and they've decided that that's what's important, is family, not a winery. So if anybody's listening and you want to know more about maybe buying a winery, I don't know if it's for sale.
You never know.
I know who to find out from.
Yeah,
every winery is for sale. Every winery is for sale.
It's not the easiest
Probably
thing.
right. Probably right.
Yeah,
especially in this economy.
Yeah. But people ask me what's my favorite wine, and my standard answer is bottled.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah.
That's a good start.
It all has.
I'm going to steal that.
It all has. People say, "Ooh, ice wine, that's awful. It's so sweet and syrupy." And I go, "Ooh, yeah, and it's so good with ice cream."
Oh, I never.
It has a place. Every wine. It's rare that I don't like a wine.
It is about how you pair it, right, Peggy? It's always about how you pair it and the company you have.
And the company you have, you bet, absolutely. But there are some bad wines, poorly made wines, and
yes,
you got to recognize that. But
they're on the bottom shelf in the grocery store.
Well, there's a winery in Virginia that I don't talk about, and it's not too awfully far from some of these, but he makes a really good vinegar.
Oh, well, there you go. Well done. Cooking. Well, what I love about these conversations is the connection about tourism and travel, and wineries being part of the focus of destinations. And Joe, you do that, food, wine, and travel. That's, what you're about. So you will go to a region with the main focus of wine, and then you'll do things in between, right? Because you can't be whining all day. But
well, if you start early enough, you can. Just kidding. Just not really.
Well,
but
you never know.
Anywhere I go, for whatever reason, if I go for a book conference, I would be Googling wineries near me. I'm always looking for the wineries near wherever I am. If I'm traveling, we went to some really good wineries in the Azores. I'm always looking for wineries, and people come in, and this is a picture of part of my wine rack in my pantry. People come in and they see all this wine and they go, "Are you an alcoholic?" I go, "No, if I were an alcoholic, I wouldn't have all these bottles of wine."
Exactly.
They would have been empty and in the trash.
No.
Just because you have a lot of wine, it doesn't make you an alcoholic.
It's a babies thing, but they're babies. Like the Viogniers, they're babies, and they're part of their craft. And I think going to a winery and having the experience, and like Dave, we were talking about that over at Bell's Up Winery. I mean, that's the thing, is tourism plays a part of it, for your region, right? If it wasn't for travelers getting to it, it's not, you can't just sell wine online, is what I'm saying.
Absolutely. And, a lot of times, especially for people that come to visit us, yes, they're going to be here and they're going to go see wineries, but it's going to be a lot more than that. This region has so much going for it. The coast is an hour and a half away. We've got Mount Hood. We've got all sorts of wonderful hiking trails. I mean, it's an outdoor paradise here. It's pretty much anything you want. And so usually when people are coming to see us, it may be for a week trip, and maybe they're going to spend 2 days, maybe tasting wine, maybe 3, but then the rest of the time, they're going to be out enjoying all of
Mhm.
the other amazing things that the Willamette Valley has to offer. So
Mm.
we've always said that, for us, it's almost less important to seek out people that are purely about the wines than it is about wine as part of their lifestyle. And that's kind of where we feel we can fit in nicely.
And
Yeah.
tell everyone a little bit more about your wines, because I think you do more than Pinot, and that always people like, oh, there's more than Pinot Noir in Oregon.
There is, and really only now is when we're starting to see that expansion. I mean, our climate here in the valley is very different than just about anybody else who's on the call. We in general have a cooler, wetter climate, which lends itself very well to grapes that don't need a very long time to ripen. So pretty much every white, and then on the red side, Pinot Noir, but there are others. And we're starting to get into that now. But for us, we've always looked at this area and said, okay, 800 wineries, the vast majority of them only making Pinot Noir on the red side. And, we kind of realized that A, if you're a local, you're probably dying for some variety. B, if you're here tasting wine and you've been to 10 other places and had 25 Pinot Noirs, by the time you get to us, you're probably dying for some variety. So we do that in two ways. One is we purchase some fruit from over in the Walla Walla area. It is still in Oregon, so we get to say we are 100% Oregon grown and mean it. But we get Syrah and we make Cabernet from a little vineyard just across the border from Washington. And then at our vineyard site too, we have a couple of very unique varietals planted, one of which we do have available, Seyval Blanc, which is a grape that you normally find in the Finger Lakes in New York, but it's planted down into Pennsylvania, Ohio, Michigan. Does really nicely in cooler weather climates, and it's a great match for here. And back in 2020, we also planted a northeastern Italian red grape called Schioppettino. We are one of about 8 plantings in the U.S. that I can find at the moment, but that's a grape that's grown in the far, far northeastern corner of Italy, up in Friuli, foothills of the Alps, so higher elevation, not a perfect match for our weather here, but it's pretty close in terms of growing season. And the reason we have that is that A, we wanted to diversify, and B, I just personally love Italian reds, and I wanted to plant one, and I get to be self-indulgent once in a while. So we're going to have a commercial planting a commercial product within the next 2 years. We're still kind of trying to work out a couple of the kinks, but we really like what we're seeing. But when folks come to visit, they absolutely love that we're kind of some of the ones taking the lead on saying, hey, we are capable of growing other varietals here. They may not be things that are as commercially well known as, the big boys, your Pinots, your Cabs, and so on and so forth. But for us, it's really less important, because when people come to see us, you may not know what the wine is, but you get to taste it, you get to form your own opinions. And that, I think, that discovery process is so much of the parts of wine we all enjoy so much.
Go up a little bit, I mean south, over to Carol in Medford. What are some of the experiences like for folks, and the kinds of wines that they can expect to taste in Medford? And are the wineries open and, allow that kind of thing? Are there wine dinners, that kind of thing?
Yeah, I mean, I think that that's the great thing about our industry, is that we're really open to growing. And so, we have to work a little bit harder. There is something to do 7 nights a week down here that involves wine and food. And, we have a huge diversity and climate down here, as you were mentioning. I mean, we have Crater Lake, which is 90 minutes away from us. We have the Rogue River, we have Applegate Valley, and then, so people will come, they'll plan their trip, and they'll wine taste for a couple of days like they do up in the Willamette Valley, and then they'll enjoy our region, which is, of course, as a destination marketing organization, what we want them to do. We want them to stay here a little bit longer and stay in our hotels here. But we have stuff from live music is a really popular thing down here. Our zoning's a little bit different than in the Willamette Valley, so there are a lot of restaurants associated with wineries. So there's a wine dinner almost every night if you really wanted it. So that's something that's unique about our region. But then it's that music, it's It's that farmy kind of feeling. It's that really grassroots type of environment that, allows for, you to stumble upon, 3 winemakers sitting at the bar at the Jacksonville Inn, right? And they're going to share their bottle with you. So it's a really intimate industry down here, but also a lot of opportunity for people to get an in-depth knowledge. And, like in the Willamette Valley, and like, and I'm sure all these other regions, it's, the likelihood that you're going to walk into a tasting room and an owner or a winemaker or a kid, I mean, we have a small brand. We make 250 cases a year, and my partner's a winemaker at a bigger one, right? And we joke around. He said, "Why not? Let's work 7 days a week," right? And it's like, I'm counting the days till the girls are 21, so we don't have to work every weekend, right? And it's, but we're there, right? And it makes for such an awesome, intimate experience. And we'll sit behind the bar for a while, and they'll say, we won't say anything. And finally, they're like, "God, well, who makes the wine?" And I'm like, "Well, he does." And they're like, "Oh my gosh, you've got to be kidding me." And, we've just been talking about the Brit Festival down here. You didn't even say anything. So it's that grassroots and really that entrepreneurial experience that people can get down here.
I want to go to Peggy. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, Lisa, I was going to add on. I think what's so important about the wines and wineries is that it helps the rural economy, and it helps diversify rural economies all over the country. And it adds that extra to an experience in a rural area. So if they're coming for outdoor recreation, then they also have the wine tasting as part of it. Or if they're coming for the history of the area, it just is another add-on, a value add to the whole experience that they're having in the rural areas. And I know in Arizona, it is critical to the economic vitality of rural Arizona, and we have a major economic impact. Even though our industry is small but growing, it is experiencing a true economic impact on our rural areas.
Well, especially in your area, Wilcox region, which is again southeast, right? And you're a little bit out of that area, but you've got, I mean, that community. As the wine region started growing, you've got festivals, hotels are, oh yes, we have people in the hotels now. It helps the restaurants if there's wineries, that all has to happen together. And you've got like bird festivals, you've got, Chiricahua National Monument is your backyard, but you've got two, interesting experiences. One is the vineyard, which you open up really for members and for people at Harvest Hosts who take their RV, and you could dry camp on their property, which is cool. And then you have Scottsdale, you're right downtown. So people could be touring art and going, well, before we stand in a gallery, let's have some wine. and you do events. So it's two different experiences.
And we did that purposefully. I mean, different than I think in Oregon, and where most of our wine regions, or where the grapes are actually grown and where the wineries are, they're not close to any large cities. And so it's not like we have a Portland in our backyard or that, so I am so remote. It's an hour to a grocery store where I am, so you got to really want to come to me at the vineyard. And so I could sit with my doors and my gate open to my winery and sit there for a week and no one will show up. So I had to find a place.
Pretty good to me.
Except the illegals coming across the border. But so I had to find a place, and downtown Scottsdale was perfect for us to have our tasting room. And it is, we act like a mini chamber of commerce in downtown Scottsdale, because we can tell people all about the wine regions of the state. And if they want to venture out to those wine regions, we can help them do that. But we get so many international visitors as well as visitors around the country. It's very successful to have our tasting room in downtown. We're about a 3,000 case winery, but it allows us, I have wine club members all across the country because of our location in downtown, and we're pretty much 100% direct to consumer through that.
Now, tell everybody about your wine and the Petit Syrah, the Grenache, the Rosé, the Viognier. Sorry, and then she's got the one that that's for date night.
Yeah,
I'm gonna watch my language from last time.
Yeah, see, I spoiled her. She came to visit and had a great time at our winery and drank a lot of wine. But
and ate brownies.
And yeah, but good butt brownies, not the loaded brownies.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Not the Oregon
But
brownies,
Not
right?
the,
Yeah,
yes,
yeah.
exactly. But we are 100% a state winery. So we don't buy grapes, we don't sell grapes. Everything that we grow is what we make. And we specialize in Rhone varietals. And we decided if we were going to spend all our money and have this second act and work this hard, we wanted to focus our energy on only 4 varieties. So we planted Petite Syrah, Syrah, Grenache, and Viognier. So we're mostly a big red house. We do big reds, and we do our Viognier as our only white. And we might do a blend once every couple years, and otherwise we do single varietal wines. And we're really known for our Petite Syrahs. They do really well at our altitude, and we're on volcanic soils, and they just love this location. And so Petite Syrah, Grenache is a little bit more tricky. I call that the Pinot Noir of the desert. So they have that same Pinot Noir profile, at least in our location. And so we get the really bright fruit that we have in our Grenache. But it's typically a blending grape, and we don't blend it. We keep it full varietal. And then our Syrah has been tricky to grow for some reason. We've had difficulty, but with frost incidents and other issues. So I think this year the last couple of vintages, our Syrah is really coming on. So we're excited about that.
Maybe
But
a
in
little
Arizona,
Medra, huh?
I know. So we have 13 acres under production. We have 40 acres on property, and we have probably another, realistically another 12 to 15 acres that we can plant. And I would love to get some Mourvèdre. My husband and I, he says, I'm too old for any more grapes, but I keep wanting to get some Mourvèdre so we can do a GSM.
That sounds like having children.
Oh God.
It's like
I think
that.
it would be cheaper to have children.
I was going to ask Michaelin in Jasper, Texas, you want to tell people what they can experience? I mean, you go to a wine dinner, right? And then when people also stay the night when people come stay at the bed and breakfast, because it is beautiful. Everyone's got to go and check it out.
It is very beautiful here. We are on 8 acres. We have 1,000 feet of Angelina River frontage. We are probably 3 miles from Lake Sam Rayburn, which is the largest lake in Texas at 114,000 acres. If you like to fish, it is a top bass fishing lake. We started these wine dinners, and we're doing them on Wednesday nights as a way to try to generate weekday stays. Because weekends are easy for us. Everyone's going away for the weekend. They want to go somewhere that's close. It's 2 hours. It's no problem. But our challenge is getting our weekdays filled up. And we thought, well, if we do this wine dinner, then people will come. They're not inexpensive. So it's probably someone who has the flexibility to be off on Thursday or, work from home or whatever. And unfortunately, and also unfortunately, we've had such a great turnout from locals that we're not getting overnight stays. We typically do 5 courses. One night we did 6, and they brought 9 wines, and that was just the longest night of my whole life. And we're never doing that again.
Joe.
Yeah, it was a lot. It was a lot. So, but we typically do 5 courses. And we always offer to do 6 wines. So if there's a course that either you can do like a compare and contrast of 2 different whites, or you pair a salmon with a white and a red. We do that so that we get to kind of sneak in an extra wine, and everybody loves it. It challenges. We do the cooking in-house. It challenges us to try new things. Our last dinner, we had Brennan Vineyards from Comanche, Texas here. And they have a cab that's called Buffalo Rome, and we paired it with a bison.
Oh, wow.
So
wow.
Trying to
One
find
second.
a bison tenderloin was fun.
I know Carol has to run and go drink some wine.
So
thank you for
o'clock here,
I know. Okay. Yeah, right. Well, thanks for joining us, everyone. Again, travelmedford.org is the website for visiting Medford, Oregon and the Rogue Valley. Thank you.
Thank you guys, and I'm sorry I have to jump off, but it was a pleasure. And I love Texas wine. I'm excited to try some Arizona wine and anything else out of there. I got to expand my umbrella a little bit and get a little bit less Willamette Valley Pinot Noir in my cellar. So.
Oh, there it is. All
Now,
right.
now.
Come visit.
Don't
But
get carried away.
I know, I love this.
All right, thanks you guys. Bye-bye.
Thanks. Real quick, Joe, I wanted to go back to Virginia and Yadkin Valley, with the wineries out there, the things to do, in with them. So how long could you spend in Yadkin Valley, and how long would you say going in? No, that's the stupid question.
I think there were 40 wineries in the Yadkin Valley, and it is surrounded by rivers. So you could be kayaking and canoeing, you could be hiking, you could be horseback riding. I stayed at 2 different wineries in old log cabins in the vineyards, and several others have on property houses that you can stay in. So, I mean, I could go back and do the same ones I did on that trip and be perfectly happy. And I'm an overachiever, but even I couldn't do 40 in 4 days. I tried. I found out 4 is probably my max.
Yeah, that's a lot. It is a
Because
lot.
I don't, I see people taste and spit out. I don't spit out good wine. It's not in me. So, if I start early, like I said, if I start early enough in the morning, I could probably go tasting at 4 different places. But a tasting is an hour to 2 to 3 in some cases, because most of them have foods, local cheeses, and things that they have available. The owners, the winemakers, usually the same person, owner and winemaker, they're there pouring the wine and talking. So I'm learning about the agriculture, the history of the area, the history of a family. There's one of the wineries in Yadkin Valley that, in talking and admiring the pictures on the wall, the winemaker was talking about this was his in-laws winery, and his mother-in-law and his mother met first before the children were born. The mothers were in Lamaze class together. So how cool is that? They had babies together that grew up together, fell in love, and married, and are running this winery together. So
wow.
that was just a neat story. That's how they met. Was we met in the womb.
That's wild. That's wild. Yadkin Valley is not far from Asheville either, in Burnsville area, actually, where we go to a lot. And recently on our Asheville Adventures in Asheville show that we do every second Tuesday, the day before Peggy's show, every first Tuesday, Peggy's is every first Wednesday. We had Asheville wine tours. They actually have a wine tour. Everyone gets in a van because everyone's so spread out. But I've had a few wines from that area, and it's pretty good. Even the Biltmore produces its own wine.
I do.
La di da, it's a state wine, isn't it? Sorry, that's just a terrible joke. But before you all go, I've got to ask the names real quick. So obviously, we know Joe, Have Glass Will Travel. She's got a good name there, and Joe Goes Everywhere, right?
Dude, Joe Goes Everywhere is my podcast with Nancy, and also my Instagram account.
That's right. And so she's on every second Saturday. I want to go, Michaelin, obviously. A Sunday, yes.
Triple S, second Sunday at 7.
See, she's got her things going on. Don't take her to a casino. She's going to look for 777s.
Really. And before I relinquish the mic, I want to ask a question about the Pinots. Are you making a rosé with any of that Pinot?
Not only am I making a rosé, I'm making a sparkling rosé as well.
Because most of the time I'm not a big fan of rosé. It's okay, but I had one that was just, oh wow, it was amazing. And I started examining the bottle to see why it was so amazing, and it was made from Pinot. And I thought, well, no wonder it was so great. It started out great.
See, now wait a minute, Peggy, tell about your rosé.
I was just gonna say, you gotta try a rosé of Grenache. We do a rosé of Grenache that is absolutely
Awesome.
fabulous. It's fuller bodied, so we lay it down in contact with the skin, so it's a darker rosé color, but it's absolutely fabulous.
Wow.
Zero
Sounds very
residual
similar to the one
sugar.
we do.
Probably, yeah, very probably.
Rosé is a good wine. I mean, there's just
It's-
it's just perfect for pairing and
It's
everything.
good for summer. It's a summer
Yeah.
wine.
What
Yeah.
are you serving in summer? Like what's a typical breakfast?
Oh, for here, we do a couple of things. My husband and I have differing opinions on what to serve for breakfast. We serve some very decadent things. Probably one of our favorites and one of our guest favorites is our creme brulee French toast. It's really more like a bread pudding for breakfast with caramel, and we serve it with fresh whipped cream. And my husband slices up these delicious little Honeycrisp apples, and we put some of the caramel on the apples because he's a sugarholic. And so that's a way to get more sugar on the plate. And that's one of our favorites. And so when, we always try to make sure that the guest gets it when they're here. And I said, golly, I don't want to feel like that's all we have. And he said, a lot of people come and see us just once a year. And he said, I think they come here to get that because they're not getting that at home. So they come back and they expect it. They want it.
They look forward to it.
That's what he said. So we try not to mix it up too much. We do a great homemade biscuit. We deal with a lot of dietary restrictions, and so the people that don't eat eggs or they don't eat bread, and
That's when you bring the wine in and say, but you can drink this.
I was like, here, just drink this.
How do you feel about fruit?
yeah, really. That's fermented. That's fermented.
It's a fruit course. Perfect.
Oh,
Yeah.
fruit.
Well, I want to go back to the name. So, Michael, the Bird and Butterfly Inn. So, do you get a lot of nature people that come and sit by the
We
river to watch
do.
birds and butterflies?
We do. We have in the front of the house, we have kind of a sloping terrace that goes down because we're on an elevated area above a river. And we have a lot of butterfly attracting plants there. But where we are in East Texas is a major flyway. It's a migration flyway for both birds and butterflies. So we get a lot of things that come through. We have local woodpeckers, barred owls, there's a cockaded woodpecker, and we're between two national forests. So we're between, right up the road from us is the Angelina National Forest, and just on the other side of Lake Sam Rayburn is the Sabine National Forest. And those two together are over 300,000 acres of national forest. So yeah, we get a lot of naturalists.
Oh, that is awesome. Okay, so I'm going to go to you, Dave, in closing. Bells Up Winery, tell everybody about the name, and then we've got to go to Peggy's name, the LDV Winery, because that's a good name too.
Sure. So our whole branding starts with the French horn on our logo. I was a French horn player for 20 years, and when I was in college, I was in the symphony and the wind ensemble, and try to play still now. It's been a while, but when we started the winery, what we were thinking about was, how do you get people to connect with the wines beyond kind of the standard technical, aromas, flavor, tasting notes that we all kind of know. And I came up with the idea of giving each one of our wines a specific personality based on either a piece of music or a composer, just something that really captured what that wine felt like and kind of tied that into what did that particular piece of music feel like when you did it. So we kind of had all of that laid out. And the last part of this was finding the name of the winery. And we said, well, we're going to find a property and then we'll tie something about the property location in with the theme. And it just so happens that we're located on Bell Road, which has people ask me, they did not name the road after us. It would have been amazing if they did, but no, unfortunately, the Bell family has lived on this road for 3 generations. But Bells Up has a very specific meaning for horn players. The bell is the end of the horn, the big part where all the sound comes out. And most of the time as horn players, when we play, that part of the instrument sits on top of our right leg. And we kind of just play that way. But every once in a while, you get a moment when the composer wants to throw in a little dramatic flourish. And when that happens, there's a little note in our part that says bells up. And when that happens, you raise your bell up in the air, and this is your moment to be the center of attention for a little bit. So it really just kind of tied in everything that we had imagined when we started this place up. Also fit some very important marketing parameters. It was short, it was pronounceable, and it started close enough to the front of the alphabet so that we appear early on lists without looking desperate in the process.
And it ties back to Christmas trees, which is where your property was a Christmas tree farm. So bells on Christmas trees, kind of. That's just the way my mind goes as well. So I love this.
And
I love
people can
this.
spell it. That's also important.
Yeah.
Depends on how much wine
Spell
they've
it,
had.
pronounce it, all the basic things that, customer, and it'll be memorable for people.
I love
Right.
that. I love that. So tell your story, LDV Winery.
So LDV is named after my husband's family name. So Lawrence and Dunham Vineyards. This was our second act. And it's just, we connect really, our tagline is what's important to us, which our tagline is Earth's Fruits Come Full Circle. So we are a sustainably grown vineyard. Our wines are vegan, are zero residual sugar. They are gluten-free. So we don't have any additives even in the vineyard. We don't use manure in the vineyard. So if we did, we couldn't call it a vegan wine. And so it's all about our connection to the land it's just we just love our location. It's very special.
Awesome. Everyone, ldvwinery.com, bellsupwinery.com. If I got that right, Dave?
You got it.
All right. And then keep up with Jo at Jo Goes Everywhere on her Instagram and haveglasswilltravel.com. And of course, her podcast is every second Sunday at 7. Peggy's here every first Wednesday, and you'll see Michaelin around a little bit more. And Dave, say hi to Sarah, and thank you all for joining us here.
Thanks so much for having us.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Cheers, and cheers to
Cheers.
America having
Everyone.
good wine.
Yes.
Cheers.
Thank you for listening to Big Blend Radio's Wine Time with Peggy show. Keep up with LDV Winery at ldvwinery.com. Keep up with Big Blend Radio at bigblendradio.com.